August of 2021. I was in Fayetteville. We were running final expense and transitioning into Medicare. I was so joyful to finally be getting into Medicare because that is the only reason I got into the business.
I was in an interesting position, I would say. I had kind of slowed down on my business writing spree. I was averaging about 5 to 7K a week face-to-face for a few months there.
And so when I started writing the Medicare plans, I felt invigorated. The way that we were taught in final expense was go out there and write business and call me. And so when I finally got into Medicare, it was nice because there were a lot more resources available and I felt like the leads were significantly higher in quality. So I was really excited at this point. It's kind of almost like a reinvigoration of the fire.
And I started to get a bunch of chargebacks, and being at 50-point comp, your paycheck is already very small. And so when you get a bunch of chargebacks one after another, and you haven't been paid in a few weeks, you know, things start to wear on you, especially when the whole point of being at a certain company is to get free leads, and leads just aren't available.
First AEP this is kind of where I ended up getting frustrated again. So a lot of frustration in this story, which is how we got here. But the AEP was my golden ticket. I knew that with my skills, my knowledge, that I would be able to go in and change the business for myself. And so right before the AEP starts, they tell us there's no leads going out.
I know we were driving about 2.5 hours just to go run an area for maybe 15 new leads, and the rest of them were recycled. And when I say recycled, I'm not talking like a few months old or a few weeks old or even a few years old. We're talking like as old as 11 years old for a lead. The like period as far back as they'll go in a recycled lead is like, I think 15 years. A lot of people that were dead, a lot of people that didn't live at the address. So I was pretty frustrated, I'm not gonna lie.
A lot of times I had to get hotels. There was a lot, you don't have any money coming in the AEP. Basically every house was a shot at everything. Like I was cross-selling everything. It ended up working out pretty well. If I had had new leads, it wouldn't have been what it was. I think I got 84 apps, and I was pretty disappointed with myself. I was aiming for 200. And so the leads was the biggest problem because they were limited.
And if you know anything about door knocking apartments, it's that people move a lot. So this lead was only 2017, it was 4 years old. The lady was gone, and I ended up selling a lady who was like 25 and her husband was 24. I mean, you can definitely write business on leads that are dead or leads that don't live there anymore, and just talk to the person that does.
I would oftentimes have to switch areas to work different recycled packs, sometimes in a week. So I'd have to go 2 hours one way, 2.5 hours the other way after getting back home, maybe take an off day on Wednesday just to try and get groceries and eat. And then I would go back out to the other side of the state and end up working. I'd go from the beach to the mountains. However it worked, but I was all over the place. It was extremely inefficient, and that was the reason that it didn't result in the outcome that I wanted.
I remember, I don't know if this was August or September or maybe like early October, but I got tasked with training this guy. This dude was, kind of a big shot. He was actually an ex-pro golfer who used to be in the IT space. He had kind of bounced around from a few different companies and got recruited to this IMO that we worked at. And the guy who was supposed to train him that day had bailed. They were like, hey, who do we trust? We'll throw him in the car with them. So I drive out to probably the most desolate county in North Carolina. Didn't sell a thing, and I spent a lot of time talking to this guy. Very interesting dude, right? Made 7 figures playing golf, switched over to the business world, big time networker, making a lot of relationships, and had a lot of very interesting stories. And I remember talking to this guy, he asked me, why are you here? And that question kind of caught me off guard because this guy was coming to work where I was. And the way that he viewed the company I was at didn't seem like it was in a very positive light. He said, why are you working here? I feel like you could do so much better. And he was telling me about some ideas that he had for the industry coming from the IT side. He saw a lot of potential with digital marketing within the insurance business, having a website or a page where people can go and request information. And me having a background in e-commerce and marketing on Facebook, all of these ideas that he was mentioning to me, they really clicked. And I started thinking about it and I was like, dude, this makes so much sense. If we could figure this out, we wouldn't have the problem of having no leads, right? Because we're at a 50-point comp plan and we have no leads and we're giving up that comp in order to get leads. So why don't we solve the problem of having leads? And so I remember you and we actually hopped on a phone call with our bosses, pitched them the idea, and it seemed like it fell on deaf ears. to say the least.
Well, Tim, I think we can even kind of expand on that a little bit. I wouldn't even say that it fell on deaf ears, because they definitely heard it, but they didn't care about anything that we had to say.
Not in the slightest.
Despite the fact that they said that they did.
It was odd because when we first came to work there, we were told by the CEO of the company, this guy's worth like probably 9 figures, or at least that's what they told us. He said that this company was built on borrowed ideas from other people. And so he was very open to any new idea that came from somebody that worked there. So I was like, okay, word. I'm gonna go up and tell this guy the idea that we have. And so we set up a phone call, and they started the call with, hey guys, I just want to let you know we're not mad and you're not in trouble. I was thinking to myself, not in trouble? I wasn't really sure what they meant by that, because in my eyes and in Julian's eyes, we were just bringing them an idea that we had that we were actually going to do for free to help improve their business. And the reaction we got to that was, you're not in trouble. It's like, dude, I never thought I was in trouble. I'm offering free labor to help improve your company. Why would I be in trouble? And so, yeah, I think you're right. Saying that it fell on deaf ears is definitely a nice way of putting it. After that phone call, our respect for those guys kind of dropped off of a cliff, because before we would kind of idolize them because they were, older guys, they'd made a ton of money, very successful in business. But after that, we felt that there wasn't really a mutual respect, and that they were more so trying to placate us so that we wouldn't push the idea anymore. Kind of trying to shove off this idea and push it to the side and just tell us to focus and work the system. But the problem with working the system is we didn't have any leads to run.
In the month leading up to us leaving, I think the annual enrollment period had just closed out. I was really frustrated because we had no leads in a company that their only promise was that we would have free leads at all times. We had none. So that was frustrating. That was really frustrating, because it's like, if you went to a job and they said, we're gonna give you a salary. Every month we're gonna pay you every 2 weeks. And they just didn't pay you every 2 weeks. They just kind of paid you whenever. Sometimes it was every 3, every 6, weekly, sometimes not at all. Be pretty frustrating for the employee. So that's kind of how I felt, because leads are money. Ultimately, leads are money.
Being told that our ideas were valued and that bringing ideas to them was okay, it was kind of an open forum, was the expectation that was set. When that was broken, I didn't feel valued in the company. And this whole event taking place before what ended up happening during the AEP, having no leads, the whole reason we got into the business was to run Medicare and to build a residual. And when we got there were no leads for us to work. There was a lead shortage for 6 weeks straight. We didn't have anybody to talk to. They told us to work recycled leads, but we were giving up so much comp. What's the point of working recycled leads when I could go work somewhere else? And so kind of transitioning into where the idea came from, touching back to the whole car ride I had with the golfer, that kind of spurred the idea to figure out lead generation and do it on Facebook. Ultimately, I was very frustrated at that point.
I remember the last month of us being there, I refused to write any business. I will not write any more business under this company. I read over the contract, said they were gonna keep everything, so I was like, there's really no point in putting any more into their pocket. I'm not gonna get to keep any of it anyways, with the timetable of which I'll get paid. The system of the company wasn't terrible. It was the environment that we were in that was not good. There's good companies and bad companies, but ultimately a successful company has good aspects, and they also have good cohorts of people. So like, we just got in with one that wasn't good. And so for us, or for me at least, getting in there, it wasn't a good fit at all. Not for who I was with, but I liked the guys. And so I let that kind of blind me for a little too long. And once I kind of got to this point, I was like, dude, this makes no sense. They're taking my production for granted. They are not willing to invest in me as a person. My advice, my constant attempt at redirecting everything towards the right path was never acknowledged. The guy that I was under had already had 2 full teams collapse under him. The other guy had already lost an entire massive team before that. Then it had another team like earlier that month collapse under. And so I was like, there's only one reason to be on a boat when you're in the water. And that's if it's floating. It wasn't. It was filling with water. The ship was going down. Nobody's gonna save us. There's no life raft. So I jumped off and started grabbing pieces off the boat to put one together for myself. Is kind of how I felt. Me and Tim were kind of just putting it together for ourselves. I think after that phone call, like you said, kind of everything changed. We started bouncing ideas off each other and things started to evolve. So fast forward a little bit to the end of the AEP. You're frustrated. You're pissed off. Where are you at?
Well, I think at this point, we kind of already knew that we were going to do something different, or at least I did.
No, we were both fed up at that point.
Yeah.
December. I think maybe like a little bit earlier. And I think in October I was still like, oh, AEP, let's see how it goes. But I feel like
you were frustrated, but I don't think you saw a way out.
That might have been it.
Yeah. Honestly, for me, from the month of August all the way to the end of the year, I saw myself leaving the company. I didn't see a future there long term. I didn't think it made sense. And so coming to December, I remember I had the idea. I came into your room. I explained it to you.
The idea at the time, I'm trying to think of how it all originated because the idea has evolved so much to date.
I remember standing in your doorway and just pitching you.
This wasn't the first time you had mentioned it.
Yeah.
This is when it clicked.
This is when it clicked. And I remember what I said to you was, the only way you can maximize the comp plan is if you create the comp plan.
Yeah, that was when it clicked for me because the way that I was trained in sales was max the comp plan. And when you mentioned the comp plan, you took you unlocked a core memory in my experience, and you just like kind of gave it a little jump start. And I was like, oh dude, that makes so much sense. I stayed up excited all night thinking like, well, how does it work? What are we gonna do? How are we gonna do it? Not in like a negative way of like, oh man, like how are we gonna do it? But more of like
excited.
Yeah.
Antsy.
Yes, ready to start.
And I remember we spent the whole month of December kind of like figuring out the way we were gonna handle it. And it sucked. We were having to keep secrets from people that, we called friends. Granted, no ill will towards any of those people, but it just wasn't really a good relationship for us business-wise. And so that's why we decided to leave. But I remember leading up to January, I know we left on January the 3rd is when we went in there. A lot of frustration, and ultimately, once we knew that we were gonna leave, there was a lot of hope that was there. We felt as if the future was bright, which it sure was.
Well, let's break down your perspective of the way that the conversation leaving went.
We come into the office January 3rd, and Julian asked me to handle the conversation because you had a lot more riding on the line. He had a little bit more in residuals than I did at that point, and so he didn't think that he would be able to handle himself talking about losing 20 grand, or we hadn't even gotten our AEP checks at that point.
Without losing my temper.
Right, exactly, without causing a scene in the office. So I was the one that ultimately handled that conversation. So I went and talked to him, told him what we were gonna do, told him we were gonna leave, and they didn't really take it seriously. And so they call in the CEO of the company. We go to the main office that day, and we sat for 7 hours.
Oh my God.
As they tried to pitch us on why we were making the worst decision of our life. We were told that we were giving up $40 million, which was pretty interesting. That from leaving, we were gonna miss out on $40 million in shares. That was a pretty out there statement to make on their end.
We were told all sorts of stories. They said that we would never be them. We'd never make their achievement. Partnerships don't work. They're for the bedroom, not for business. Which is funny because they were founded on a partnership. I can't even think of what else went on in that room because it was so... They're crying?
Crying.
Yep, that occurred. A grown man. It was weird, really weird. No hard feelings towards, some of the people in that room. One person in that room doesn't have any hard feelings towards him, but I'm fine when people want to do business, when they want to save business. There's nothing wrong with that. But lying, unethical, immoral business is not cool. And so, like, for example, 3 months of me being there, I was in top 10 producers, and I was top 3 multiple times, and top 5 almost that entire 3-month period for final expense within the company. They told me I had a work ethic problem. I was thinking about it, and I was like, I have a work ethic problem, but I work 6 and 7 days a week, split commissions with agents to keep them, keep them in the business, and I do everything I can to make sure that everyone gets what they need. And so it was real, that right there, they shut the door. Like, there might have been a tiny little sliver of light into which they could have maybe worked into a deal where it worked out. That right there closed the door for them. Because they were talking about my character. They're good salespeople. They're good recruiters. They're good at what they do. They know how to work the game. They've been in it a long time. But they made that one fatal mistake right there, into which I was just sold out of their vision. 7.5 hours of pitching. It was pretty gross to watch grown men just say anything they could to get someone to stay there just to get overrides. It's really not that much money. It's not really, to lie and be unethical is really just not worth it. In my opinion, maybe it is to them, I don't know.
Honestly, after that entire pitch, from getting told as to why what we were trying to do could not be done, we were both considering staying. We had a lot of hesitation.
Yeah, they made a valid argument. I don't think we were considering staying. We just asked each other whether or not we were making the right move. Mm-hmm. Because for me, there was no option in which we stayed. We just didn't know if we were making a mistake.
The reason that I say that is because they told us that what we were trying to do was not possible, like legally. Like, we couldn't even get the contracts to do it.
Oh, I remember that.
That was a bold-faced lie that they had told us, but ultimately ended up leaving. They kind of tried to divide us, break up the friendship. They said a lot of things about both of us to each other privately. There was a lot of dirt being slung. So after we left, we couldn't work for 6 months. They held our contracts. We were out of the business. Why did we decide to look into lead generation, and how did that idea come into fruition?
So I remember at the time,
we had a chip on our shoulder after this whole debacle.
Oh yeah, no, I mean there was a lot of frustration. I lost about 20 grand in renewals. So I think it was a little bit more. I know Tim lost some renewals. I don't know the exact number of Tim's, but that was just for Medicare. I also had some with, you know, other products like life insurance, ancillary products, stuff like that. And I lost, I mean, that's not a ton of money, but it's enough to put salt in the wound, you know? So I remember after we left, we went on a road trip, drove around looking at different IMOs, different people to work under, interviewing them, seeing if it was a good fit. No, a lot of them weren't. You learn a lot about the business, by the way. If you go out and meet people in person, highly recommend it. You can pretty much feel a person's character out, and just by asking them select questions, I would highly recommend doing that. And you know, if you want to see a video on that, we could always do that. Leave a comment below. But that was one of the best decisions I think that Tim and I ever made. And in that time, we were like working on e-commerce, trying to put something together because Tim had a background in e-commerce and I kind of knew a little bit about it. I was learning more or less to try and build seed money for the company that we have now. You know, originally we thought we were going to be Medicare YouTubers and work inbound leads where we would basically just offer live transfers to agents.
After dealing with being told that generating leads is impossible, being told that you have to take less comp in order to have leads, to, you know, build a lead generation company, you need millions and millions of dollars to buy IBM printers, to send out mailers, to buy lists, organize logistics with the post office. Like, they put up such a barrier in front of us that really created so many limiting beliefs, whether or not it was possible, that I think when we left, we ultimately just had this chip on our shoulder.
Yeah, because I remember we were looking at leads and how we were going to make it work, and I think you and I were planning on just like kind of working some odd jobs or building the e-commerce store, making it work until we could afford to like finance the leads in mass scale. It's one thing to work like 28, 25 leads a week, but if you want to write business, you need to have a lot of leads. I mean, volume is important, especially with like the prices we were looking at. And honestly, at the time, we didn't even really know about really what all was out there, what kind of programs were available, what kind of leads were out there, who offered them. You know, we had a very sheltered vision of the business coming in.
We didn't want other agents to deal with the same lies and the same misconceptions that we did about leads and about working the business and you know, generating your own leads ultimately. And so that is really what pushed us to figure this out.
Generating leads is honestly kind of like, it's like cooking your own food. If you go out and spend money at restaurants every single day, eventually you'll go broke. No matter how much money you have, if you're out there, you know, if I'm hitting Cava, Chipotle every single day, I mean, you won't go broke, but you'll spend so much money it's not worth it. And so it's kind of like cooking for yourself. You always have access to the food whenever you want. You're always able to eat whatever you want, however you want. So it's all based off of what you need. You know, instead of getting whatever somebody tells me I can get, I get to do whatever I need and whatever I want. When you look at our business and scaling the business, because originally I don't think we were even gonna like get into helping agents with their leads. We were just gonna use them all in-house. And we were listening to a guy named Alex Hermosi, and he was like, well, you know, share your stuff with other people, blah, 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 blah. We saw some opportunity in this side of the business because we've noticed that there's so many lead vendors, there's so many people that are showing you how to do leads and all this stuff. And like, their only goal is just to get you to buy the next thing from them. And it's frustrating because I shouldn't be sold a high ticket price, let's say $1,000 in leads, for them to turn around, come back and spend another $1,000 on leads. So you always had me coming back. Depending on how you view business and how you want your business, for us, having a lead machine was the only way that we could build an agency and attract agents and offer them a never-ending system. But then we saw other opportunity in it, and then that's kind of how we progressed to where we're at now. But if you are not in control of your lead source, I would say you're in a very vulnerable spot, because if you are not able to control the one thing that makes you money, marketers come in and out the door day in and day out. Digital marketer here, digital marketer there. There's new names in this industry all the time. They come in, they go out, and they're not here to stay. We've seen lead vendors shut down where they don't fulfill orders anymore. They keep your money, they leave. They're just a really sketchy looking website selling you direct mail leads for $40 a pop. When you start to realize that you have such a vulnerable chink in your armor in this business, you do everything you can to patch it up. And I think that is for us ultimately, especially for me, the biggest reason. I can't feed my agents if I don't have anything to feed them, and they need leads to eat.
So what was the process like for actually developing the whole lead generation system that we have?
It was pretty rough at first. I mean, like, full transparency, it was pretty rough. Probably if you're, when you're watching this right now, you're thinking, get back to the last time you started something, think about when you first started selling final expense. You might have still been good. We had a good start. A lot of agents do have a good start, but like, even if you have a good start, you still miss things. You might miss the extra premium. You might miss the riders. Maybe you forget this. Maybe you don't cross sell, whatever. And so there's a lot that you miss. And so that kind of happened to us when we started. We were like, okay, well, we need to set this up. We got into this software that was supposed to be a CRM, and I think it was a funnel builder, and it was basically supposed to be like a one size fits all, which by the way never works for anything. But it was supposed to be a one size fits all for basically anything that you would need. So we started getting connected. We hit up agents and let them know, hey, we're going to be doing this for like free. We're going to figure out how to do it, and we want to test it out with people. When we did that, we learned a lot. So I wouldn't say that we failed, but we learned a lot, because I don't believe in failing. I think that if you continue long enough, you will always be successful. You'll always win. But you do have to pick up the lessons and be willing to change and adapt. If you're unwilling to adapt and improvise and overcome, you're not going to get anywhere, honestly. Like Tim and I would not be here right now. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing, and we would not be able to generate leads the way that we were if we had done what we were doing at the time when we started. And so like, I think our first go bout was pretty rough. Like, it was bad. I think we just shut down the campaign, and we're just like, yikes, this is terrible. We looked at the CRM. The CRM was honestly horrific. I hated it. Nothing against Kartra, by the way. I mean, they got a good deal going, but it's just not for what we needed. And so it was pretty frustrating at first. It was like, dude, there's a new problem every second. A new holder plug every second. Like, oh my gosh, what about the automations? What about this? What about the follow-up sequences? What about when they come in this? What about this? What about the tags? What about this? And it's like all these little lingos and jargons. We didn't know what the heck was what Kartra was. We had to watch hours of videos to figure any of it out while we were learning marketing. So Tim and I were having to learn how to write copy, learn how to make creatives, learn how to do Facebook ads for leads, not for e-commerce sales. We were trying to learn how to do Kartra. We were also learning how to do automations and sequences and build that out, while also having to join together several other softwares and integrate that with Kartra, which we also had to figure out how to do that as well, in turn to try and make one big superpower, like one super machine. It was very, very difficult, very clunky. So then came the day when a few weeks later, we were just spending our own money. We refunded the agents for their ad spend that we're doing their ads for, pulling everything out of our own wallets. We were paying for their leads, paying for the softwares, paying for this, paying for that. It was not cheap. So we were like, dude, this is getting scary. We don't have any contracts. We can't write insurance. We don't have, we can't really do anything except for continue down this path. Pretty much all we had to do. So we followed down the path, and then we struck gold. I think that was when we hit the 77-cent lead. I think it was week 3. We started getting leads for 77 cents, and we were like, dude, we're onto something here. So we started retracing our steps and systemizing everything that we had done so far. Scratched Kartra and went to a spreadsheet. After the spreadsheet, then we ended up looking into the CRM that we are currently using and will continue to use. And we built everything out on there. Tons of integrations, big learning curve, continued to optimize all the Facebook stuff. And then we started testing everything, trying different options, trying different variations of everything. We are always continuing to test and grow, but at the time we were testing everything from like one word variants, using the word and versus or. It was ridiculous. The top of the photo might be red versus blue. We tried everything. We're always testing little details. That's why it works. And so the ads for us are always getting better and better and better, because while the algorithm is optimizing to find the audiences, we are also optimizing within our skill set. 10 years from now, we're going to look back on this video and be like, dude, can you remember that? Can you imagine when we were doing X, Y, and Z? Because we're always pushing for more, always growing. And so I think that's one thing that's important. Even if you're on the sales side, on the distribution side, that is so important. That is the only reason I've been successful in making sales. Only reason I've been successful in working with agents in the lead side of things. But I know that once we cracked the code and figured it out, then we just pretty much, more or less, I don't want to say that we perfected our system. I don't believe that anything's ever perfect. You can only strive for perfection. So I would say that our system has progressed in hyperdrive. It's at a very good place right now. And honestly, I think it's in one of the best places that, I think it is arguably the best place in the industry. I would argue my case in a court of law with my system being better, Tim's system being better, our system being better than anyone else's in the industry. That's because of what we know as agents, because of what we've done. It's because we've worked the leads ourselves. We've done all this stuff. The system that we have developed, it will continue to grow, but getting to where we are now was nothing more than a collection of failures that ultimately led to a bigger show of strength, I guess is a good way to put it. Like, you get knocked down enough times, eventually when you get hit, you don't get knocked down anymore. And so like, that's kind of more or less how business works. You just kind of suck until you don't.
Yeah. And
so we just suck less. We just suck a lot less. Like I said, I don't really like to ever say that we are there. I don't think you ever get there, but I would say that we're in a very good place and we're going to continue to go up. Starting out, week number 1, we're signing up for Kartra, working in a coffee shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, and you and I are just 2 kids with a freaking dream. What would you say to yourself and whether or not it's possible after everything that you had heard and then going to figure it out yourself? What would you say to yourself?
I think probably the biggest piece of advice that I would give anybody who's just starting out, looking to generate their own leads or even just start a business, some new venture that they're trying to do, is fail forward and fail fast. You cannot be afraid to put yourself out there, and you can't be a perfectionist, right? You have to try before you can succeed. You have to suck before you can be good. And ultimately, I think the biggest determining factor for us and the reason that we've been successful is because we were willing to try and we were willing to do things even if we didn't know for sure that we could do them, but we knew we were going to figure them out, right? We didn't have the skill yet, but we knew that we were going to acquire it and we knew that we were going to make it work. And so, biggest piece of advice I would say is consistently try and consistently be okay with failure. And if you do that enough times, eventually you will not suck and you'll actually be pretty solid at doing it. And that's what happened with us. We started off with a pretty rough cost per lead. I think it was like $40.
Don't tell anyone that. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, it was about $40 a lead. And we realized that there's a few different philosophies as far as doing it. You can generate 3 leads for $40 that are high intent, and you call 3 of them, 1 of them answers and tells you to buzz off. Or you can generate, let's say 30 leads for $4 a piece, and let's say 10 of them answer and you sell 3. I would take the latter example as opposed to the first one, right? So even though they're higher intent leads or whatever, I would rather have a higher volume, more people to talk to, because ultimately everybody needs insurance. And if they fill something out, they have a level of intent. It's just about whether or not you can find it and whether or not you can convert them into a sale. So that's the biggest piece of advice I would give, is just really putting yourself out there, not being afraid to fail, and failing enough times fast enough to where you will ultimately be successful and be proficient in whatever you were trying to do.
One thing that I've kind of learned, one of the ways that I liked hearing it was nothing matters.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a blunt way of putting it. When the guy that said that, Alex Hermosi, he said, nothing matters at the end of the day. It really kind of came full circle, because like, at the end of the day, worst case scenario, you do go broke. Worst case scenario, your business doesn't work.
Right.
Worst case scenario, nobody cares anyway. They're all going to be gone. You're going to be gone. So why not do it anyways? And I think that was a great way of putting it. Is there anything else?
You want to have control over your water source, right? Because ultimately, if the source that you're using currently dries up, where are you going to go for water? And what I mean by that is, in regards to leads, you need to have the skill not only to sell, but also how to market. Because if you can't market, if something happens, like let's say your lead vendor closes up shop, you still need to be able to go out and generate leads, and you're ultimately always gonna pay less if you can do it yourself than if you're buying it from somebody else. Learn to generate leads as well as how to sell them. And if you can combine those two together, you can build so many agencies, you can recruit as many agents as you want, and you'll never have a problem with money or anything in the insurance business. All right, everyone, so without any further ado, that is gonna go ahead and wrap off the recap of how we decided to generate leads. We gave you guys the entire story from start to finish. And if you found value in this video, if you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button for more videos like this in the future. Anything you gotta say?
We'll see you in the next one.
Sounds good. See y'all.